Hello, and thank you for tuning into this recorded presentation covering the Walker and Dunlop non-qualified deferred compensation plan. Over the next 35 to 40 minutes or so, I'm going to cover exactly what a deferred compensation plan is, how it is different than your 401k plan, and how it can be valuable to you, not just as a way to save for retirement, but as a way to save for any potentially large expenditure that you have in the short to intermediate term on top of retirement. Things such as buying a boat, paying for college, buying a house, paying off the house can all be aided through this deferred compensation plan. So first, I wanted to address that there has been a change to the deferred compensation plan in that Prudential was acquired by Empower. So there are a number of things that are staying the same as a result of this change. Really, at the end of the day, what is impacting you all is just which logo you're seeing and which name you're seeing on your quarterly statements and when you log in to view your account. Because the website and login credentials are staying the same. Your contributions and investments are not changing. Your call center phone number is staying the same as well. And then finally, the user experience that you've enjoyed while working with Prudential will carry over to Empower as well. Again, the only thing that's going to be changing is the Empower logo will now be on the website, statements, notices, confirmations, emails, and any education materials that you might see. What you need to do? Really nothing. I mean, it's always important to make sure that your contact information is up to date. That is how you're going to stay most up to date with any potential changes to your retirement plans, be it the 401k plan or deferred compensation plan. But all in all, it's a very positive change to the retirement plan and one that should not cause any interruption to your overall retirement planning picture. All right, so the deferred compensation plan and your overall financial strategy. So I first just wanted to start with an introduction. My name is Keith Huber. I'm a certified financial planner and an investment advisor with the team being One Digital. Now, One Digital serves as the retirement plan advisor for Walker and Dunlop. Now, that's for both the 401k plan as well as the non-qualified deferred compensation plan. There's a ton of things we do, from recorded webinars such as this, 18 live webinars that we're doing throughout the year, a dedicated phone number and email address to answer your questions, as well as dedicated days of education with our certified financial planners. But if you don't take us up on any of that, the meetings, the webinars, the newsletters, the magazines, where you see our presence the most is we are the ones who select and monitor all of the investments that are available to you all, the employees of Walker and Dunlop. But ultimately, we work with Fidelity and Empower, as well as leadership at the firm, to make sure that we are providing what we feel to be a best-in-class retirement benefit to you all. If you have any of those questions, I'd really encourage you to reach out to our team. They are the 2 C's. They're complimentary and confidential meetings where you can ask about anything. You can ask about the deferred compensation plan. How much should I contribute? How should I structure my payout? How should I be invested given how I'm structuring my payout, right? These are all types of questions we can answer. Things about your 401k plan. Am I receiving the match? Should I do pre-tax or Roth? But also general financial planning. Our team of CFPs have the experience and expertise to help with everything from building a budget and getting out of debt, all the way to Social Security, Medicare, a retirement income plan, and potentially complex estate planning issues. And of course, everything in between. So you can reach us at 443-578-3211 or by email at 401kadvisor@onedigital.com. All right, so what will we be covering? First, what is a deferred compensation plan? Because they certainly are not as common as 401k plans. So it might be that at a previous employer, you were not offered one. So I want to cover what it is, why it's so beneficial. Second, why should I defer? Third, plan highlights. What are things that are specific and unique to the Walker and Dunlop deferred compensation plan? Investment crediting options. We'll get into why it's crediting as opposed to just straight investment options. The risks and limitations of the plan. What other decisions will I need to make? How do I enroll? And then certainly, what do I do if I have questions? Because I inevitably might. So what is a deferred comp plan? So deferred comp or non-qual or non-qualified deferred comp plan or DCP, NQ, right? However it might be abbreviated, is an agreement between you and your employer to defer receiving a portion of your compensation until a later date, right? It's in the name. You are deferring your compensation. Now, when you defer your compensation, what happens? Well, it helps with your tax situation today. So if you are in a situation where you might feel that you are in a higher tax bracket than you will be in the future, it may make sense to defer some of your compensation until that time, with the idea being that if I take it as income in 2030, in 2040, I will be in a lower tax bracket than I am today, and I will net more money after taxes. So it generally gives me the ability to defer federal and state income taxes as well as local, with the exception of FICA taxes. Now, that's just half of the tax benefit. The other half is, while I have money in the deferred compensation plan, just like with the 401k plan, my investments are growing tax deferred, which means that I'm not paying taxes each year that I have an investment gain or return. And even more so, all the money that I would have paid in taxes is being invested on my behalf. So the long and the short of it is, the deferred compensation plan is so beneficial because of the tax advantages to employees and investors who choose to use it. So what are some considerations? First, how much can I defer? And we'll get into those limits as it pertains to the Walker and Dunlop retirement plan. But to not bury the lead, a big benefit of the deferred comp plan is that I can defer considerably more dollars, or considerable amount more than I can in the 401k plan. And as if I am a highly compensated individual, that's very significant for my overall retirement income picture. Second, when and how can I receive payments? This is where I need to be very strategic, because there are seldom opportunities for me to change how and when I'm going to receive my payments. And when I do make those changes, it's a bit restricted, but we'll get into exactly what that means. What are my deemed investment options? So what investments are there for me to choose from to give me a crediting rate? And then what other factors should I consider? And we'll talk about all that as we go through this presentation. So why should I defer? For the deferred compensation plan, what it does for me is, first, pre-tax deferral of compensation. It's going to help my tax situation today. Second, tax deferred deemed earnings on the growth. So at my the investments that I choose are affording me a specified crediting rate, and that crediting rate is tax deferred growth. Anything that I would have paid in taxes had it been in, say, a brokerage account, it's just being invested on my behalf. A personalized allocation among all the available options. So I get to choose what investments I'd like to have as my deemed crediting rate. Higher contribution limits than the qualified plans. That's very, very significant. For 2023, in the 401k plan, I can put away $22,500. Or if I'm over the age of 50, I can put away $30,000. For high income individuals, that might not be enough to ultimately be able to give myself a sufficient income stream for my lifestyle and my expenses in retirement. There's flexible contribution and distribution options. And then finally, what can be a very unique benefit, something that's unique when compared to the 401k plan, is scheduling distributions while still employed. Now, the deferred compensation plan does not necessarily need to be for retirement. Now, ultimately, a lot of folks who are eligible for this plan are going to use it as such, right? Because they have a retirement savings gap that we'll talk through, that requires them to be able to save more tax advantage dollars. But the reality is, I might be planning for my children's college in 5 years. I might be planning to buy a beach house, or I want to pay off my mortgage by the time I retire. These are all instances why I might defer my compensation to a later date, but not necessarily retirement. So why is this so valuable to high income individuals? Well, what this chart shows is the retirement savings gap. So the 401k plan is ultimately still very, very valuable, but it makes up less of my retirement income if I am a higher income individual, right? The general rule of thumb is I'm seeking to replace 75 to 80% of my income as I head into retirement, with a dollar limit of $22,500 or $30,000 each year going into the 401k plan. For a low income individual, that might be able to recreate or supplement 125% of their income. But for the high income individuals, it doesn't get to that 75 to 80% mark. Hence the retirement savings gap. And the same idea with Social Security. Social Security has limits for how high those monthly benefits can go. It might be more than enough for some individuals to meet their needs, but the higher our income and the higher our replacement goal is, the less that your 401k and Social Security can ultimately cover. which is exactly where this plan comes in. And again, the big benefit is the pre-tax and tax deferred growth. So here you see net after taxes, the difference between two individuals, one who is saving in a brokerage account and one who has pre-tax deferrals. Ultimately, with a 6% annualized rate of return for these two different accounts, it's a 23% difference after taxes. So the blue bar, you don't pay taxes besides FICA taxes on the contributions to the plan. You're not paying taxes all the while we stay invested, right? In this case, it's a 45-year-old who's retiring at age 67. We're talking about 22 years of this money growing and making contributions. And on the ends, and when you take a distribution on the other end, they are paying a 32% ordinary income tax rate. On the right side, it's somebody who's paying that 32% upfront in taxes and a blended tax rate of 27.3%, thinking that half of it will be long-term capital gains, half of it will not be. Each and every year on any gains, ultimately, again, creating a 23% difference and disparity between how much money we have net of taxes. The story and the ultimate solution is that the tax deferred growth and pre-tax savings will create a very meaningful difference, in this case to the tune of over 6 figures in our ultimate balance at retirement. So what is specific to Walker and Dunlop? You can defer for 2023 during this open enrollment period. You would choose to defer up to 75% of your annual base salary, up to 100% of any bonus you may earn in 2023, which will be payable in 2024. So this is not for a bonus that you earned this calendar year that will be paid to you in 2023. It's based off of when you are earning the bonus. And then up to 100% of commissions earned in 2023. In general, unless there is a immediate and heavy documented financial need and hardship, the deferral elections are going to be binding for the year. So right now, during this open enrollment period, you are making these elections that will hold true with few exceptions for the entirety of the 2023 calendar year. So how might those impact the 401k contributions? Well, ultimately, this is showing 2022 numbers. If I wanted to contribute $20,500 and I was not using the non-qualified deferred compensation plan, if I'm making at least $305,000, then I would have to defer 6.7% of my income. Really, for the sake of fidelity, I'd be contributing 7% of my income to make sure I don't undershoot, right? I'd rather overshoot and potentially get refunded dollars at the beginning of the year. Now, let's just say I wanted to defer $90,000 of my $305,000 salary to the deferred comp plan. That money comes out first, which means that if I still wanted to contribute what is close to an even amount every single paycheck, and I'm using the deferred comp plan, I'm going to have to, in this instance, contribute at least 9.51% of my pay in order to max out at that $20,500 limit. So the difference is I need to, or the points of this chart is to show that if I want to max out my 401k plan, I might need to change my contribution rate based off of usage of the non-qual plan, because that money comes out of my paycheck first. So let's talk a little bit about the scheduling of in-service distributions, because if you're not familiar with this, it's something, again, unique to the non-qual plan when compared to the 401k plan. So right now for 2023, this open enrollment period at the end of 2022, I can schedule my first in-service distribution in the year 2026 or later, because it must be at least 2+ years after the end of the deferral year. The deferral year is 2023. So if I'm still employed at the date that I elected, so if I elected 2026, I need to still be working there to take an in-service distribution, of course. The method can be either a lump sum or installments of over 2 to 5 years. And an example of why I might do a lump sum: I want to pay off the mortgage, or I want a down payment. Why I might do installments is I'm paying for 4 years at an out-of-state public school, and I need $40,000, $50,000 for my children's college each year, so I want to take it over the course of 4 years. If I want to change it, so I make this election today, but come 2025 in this instance, I already know that 2026, I don't want this money. Maybe I have a really bad tax situation. Maybe I'm putting off buying the house. Maybe I had to sell the house that I wanted to have a lump sum for the mortgage, whatever it might be, because we know things can change. You must, if you want to make a change, you must do so 1 year in advance. So in this case, it'd be 2025. And you are at a minimum delaying for 5 years the starts of receiving these distributions. So what about for retirement? So not an in-service distribution. The timing of it is 6 months following the separation of service. That's when I'll receive my first and potentially only paycheck based off of what I elect. And for retirement to be eligible, it has to be, I have to separate from service on or after age 62. If you were to leave and you had not met that qualification, you'll be paid out a lump sum of your entire balance 6 months following separation. Now, for retirement distributions, this is where I have a little bit more of a unique option, because it can be a lump sum or installments of over 2 to 15 years. Now, if I plan on moving states and I am subject to different state taxes, right? Maybe I'm moving from a state that has taxes to one that doesn't, or vice versa. That is when it can become very, very relevant. I'd very much recommend you reaching out to our team to talk about those considerations if that's a possibility for you. And then the initial installment payment is valued on the last business day of the 6th month following separation. And then subsequent installments are valued on the last day of May and then paid out in June. Now, I can make a one-time change to retirement distribution. Again, that's going to delay for 5 years to start a payment, and the change will be effective in 12 months from the date of change. It'll show pending until, in the system until it's actually effective. So what does that look like? So any change to an existing distribution election must be done at least 1 year in advance of the payment date and requires at least a 5-year delay. So if I had scheduled a distribution for June 1st, say I decide that tomorrow, right, during this open enrollment period, my last date to change when I receive this or how I receive it is going to be May 31st, 2025. But the earliest I can now receive that payment is going to be June 1st, 2030, right? 5 years and 6 months following the original payment date that would have been June or January of 2030. So when and how should I receive my distributions? Well, it can certainly be based off what you're looking to accomplish, right? If I don't have anything that I'm looking to pay, that might be a reason that I continue to defer this compensation to a point where I actually need it, right? Where there's a purpose, be it retirement or otherwise. I already gave the examples, but if it's for college, right, I might receive 4 annual installments for this year's elections. For next year, I might say, well, in a few years, I'll have the mortgage in a good place where I can just take this lump sum and pay that off. And then the next year after that, right, so now we're into 2025 deferrals, I might choose to take that amount, that bucket, in 15 annual installments, because every single year I can make a different election based off of what I'm earmarking this money for. So a couple other distribution events to consider. Separation prior to a scheduled in-service distribution. So if I had an in-service distribution scheduled, not retirement, and I leave, I'm going to be paid according to retirement, termination, or disability, which will be a lump sum if within 1 year of a change in control. Change in control relates, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, relates to a change in control in the overall ownership and leadership of the company. If payments have already commenced on that in-service distribution, installments will continue as planned. If there's an unforeseeable emergency, also known as a hardship, it's going to require company approval, right? Because it has to be a documented hardship. There's no financial penalty, but deferrals may be affected, potentially stopping deferrals. So death/survivor distribution election, if you were to pass, then your beneficiary will receive a lump sum the month following death. And then finally, again, that change in control, if there is one, it'll be paid as a lump sum if separation occurs within 1 year following the change of control. So who will be the beneficiary? Determine who your primary and contingent beneficiary is going to be. That's going to apply to your entire balance. So if you're deferring for a decade, every single year will not have its own unique beneficiary. That's going to be for the entirety of your non-qualified deferred compensation plan. It can be a person, a trust, or an estate. You can change your beneficiary at any time online through Empower's website. All right, so what are my investment crediting options? Well, there are multiple asset classes, just like with the 401k plan, and these are deemed investments. So the reason I was alluding to that earlier on is you're not actually buying shares of, say, a mutual fund. You're effectively electing to have your money credited at a rate that is equivalent to what that mutual fund would or will make or lose, is the reality, over the next year, 5 years, or 10 years. Now, it's a very nuanced difference that to you, the end user, does not make a significant difference, but it's worth noting that you're not actually purchasing shares, but receiving the comparable investment return. On Empower's website, there's detailed information about all the funds for the crediting rates that you can choose from. Reallocation is available daily. And then finally, participants are assessed a 25 basis point, 0.25% annual administrative fee that will be deducted monthly based upon the account balance at the beginning of each month. So what are some risks and limitations of the plan? First, financial risks. Investment returns are not guaranteed, and past performance of a particular investment is not indicative of future performance. Just things that we've always known to hold true with our investments, inclusive of our 401k plan. As I mentioned, you will not own any investment crediting options to which your account may be allocated. Here is the big difference between the non-qual plan and your 401k plan. In the event of a bankruptcy or insolvency, you will be a general creditor of the company and may lose all or a portion of your plan benefits, which means if Walker & Dunlop were to declare bankruptcy and have creditors knocking at their door to pay different debts and liabilities, you would be essentially in line with those other creditors to receive the money that you've chosen to defer into the deferred compensation plan. So remember, that is a very, very big difference between the 401k plan. That does not exist there. That money that you're vested in is always yours. But that is a significant trade-off to be able to defer more money above and beyond just what the 401k will allow. So you can defer, again, we talked about the numbers, 75% of your base salary, 100% of commissions. But the trade-off is, it is still at substantial risk of forfeiture. So if the company were to go bankrupt, you could potentially lose these dollars. And then also some distribution limitations. No rollovers are available. So you cannot roll this money over into an IRA or other accounts. And then changing your distribution elections come with certain restrictions, that 5-year delay that we were talking about. And then what is a rabbi trust? So a rabbi trust is where the deferred compensation is actually held. And it may protect the assets that have been set aside by the company as a source of informal funding in the event of change of control, change of heart, change of management. Essentially, at the end of the day, the rabbi trust can help to protect your dollars if leadership and ownership were to decide to no longer offer the non-qual plan and they wanted to discontinue the plan altogether. So assets contributed to the trust generally cannot revert back to the company until all plan benefits are paid. And assets, as I mentioned, are subject to creditor claims in the case of bankruptcy or insolvency. So how do the taxes work? Well, for your deferrals, as I mentioned, they're not subject to federal or state income tax in the year they're deferred, but they are subject to FICA taxes, just like your 401k plan, Social Security, as well as Medicare tax at the time of deferral. For distributions, plan distributions and benefits are taxed as ordinary income, again, just like your 401k plan. For federal and state income taxes, FICA taxes are generally not due on distributions. Non-qualified plan benefits are not subject to penalty and excise taxes on early distributions in the 401k plan, with few exceptions, or IRAs. If you were to take the dollars before age 59 and a half, you have to pay applicable taxes as well as potentially a 10% penalty tax. Benefits cannot be rolled over into other qualified plans, right? An IRA. And then just an overview, what are the advantages? Defer more money than a 401k plan. That is going to be the number one biggest advantage for our high income users of the deferred compensation plan. You can reduce your current income taxes. The balance can grow tax deferred, right? So tax advantages. And that's going to be our driver for using any account, right? That's why we use the 401k. That's why we might use an HSA or a 529 plan. Distribution flexibility to plan for life events. It's not just retirement. It could be, but it could also be college or a house or a boat or a big trip. Payouts while still employed or at retirements / separation of service. That's when I would start receiving these payments if I'm not already receiving an in-service distribution. And then again, there's that rabbi trust and informal funding to help protect assets, but ultimately, again, they still have substantial risk of forfeiture if the company were to declare bankruptcy. What are those rules and restrictions? You cannot change deferrals during the year, right? During this open enrollment period right now, I'm making elections for the entirety of the 2023 calendar year with very few exceptions. I should think of these elections as set in stone and not able to change. Also, future tax rates could increase, right? I'm choosing to defer my compensation today, but the reality is whenever I choose to receive it, I might have a higher effective tax rate. There's no guarantee that I won't. So that should be included in your planning. Payout is subject to ordinary income taxes. Most changes to distribution elections will delay your payment by 5 years. This is a reason why people will stagger when they choose to receive each annual amount, right? So maybe I'm choosing to receive it in 2026, 7, 8, 9. And then if I get to 2025 and I'm looking at my 2026 bucket and I decide I don't need it next year, if I were to delay it to 2030 or 2031 in this case, that's okay, because then I have the 2027 bucket coming up and I can make that same decision next year, right? So having different distribution commencement dates helps to provide me some flexibility in my retirement or overall planning. No rollovers are available. These are not portable accounts. And then bankruptcy / insolvency of your company, it subjects you to being a general creditor of the company. How do I enroll today? Well, I can go to retirementnq.prudential.com, enter your username and password to log in. If you don't have one, you'll select the set up your online access option and then enter the plan number, which is 32893, the plan ID, and then go to enroll now and then go through the enrollment process. Now, I really want to encourage everybody, if you have any questions about your different elections, right? Because there are a number of things we need to decide: how much we want to contribute, how we want to be invested, when and how we want to actually receive this money. These are all things we're going to be choosing today. We can change our investments on an ongoing basis. And then who my beneficiary is. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to our team of certified financial planners. That is exactly what we're here for. Being that we have such an intimate understanding of the investments that are available, as well as the provisions of your 401k plan, we can take a holistic approach to everything that's available from you from a total compensation standpoint. So please utilize our team. Again, you can reach us at 443-578-3211 or by email at 401kadvisor@onedigital.com. You'll also see in communications regarding this plan that are going out in November and December, an ability or a link to schedule a Zoom meeting with one of our advisors. So thank you so much for tuning in to this presentation, and I hope I wish you the best of luck in your open enrollment season, and take care.